With cancel culture and leftist Twitter mobs all the rage these days, we need to take a hard look at what Jesus teaches. Let's ask ourselves a little question. Would Jesus have approved of canceling people who disagree with you and think differently than you? I don't think so. I'm Nathan Collins, bringing you the truth of Christ in a post-truth culture. Cancelled, a phrase we hear all too often nowadays. Tons of people seem to be getting canceled over the last several years, and it is only ramping up. The latest being Gina Carano from the Star Wars TV series and 6 Dr. Seuss books. Just hearing that out loud sounds so ridiculous. I mean, who would ever have thought one day we would be talking about Dr. Seuss books being erased for offending someone? Now, these aren't the only two being canceled. Many other people, to be sure, have also been canceled in the United States, but are not as famous, so they don't make the headlines. The idea of getting rid of people you don't agree with has been around for thousands of years. During the relatively short history of the United States, some famous, or perhaps we should say infamous ones, were the McCarthy communist hunts during the middle of the 20th century, where everyone seemed to be a hidden communist, and the other was in 1692 during the Salem witch trials, where everyone seemed to be a witch. Many lives were destroyed in the name of justice. Christians thought they were doing the right thing and burning witches, and secular people thought they were saving democracy from communism by destroying people's lives. A lot of really bad things happened during their crusade for what they believed was right. However, the ends do not justify the means. Jesus gave us a different way to approach those we see as enemies. Jesus said in Matthew 5, verse 46, "If you love those who love you, what do you do more than others? Did not even the tax gatherers do the same?" Tax collectors in the time of Jesus were seen as traitors to their own people and despised as also being people who ripped them off and paying much more than they actually should have. Jesus says, even these people, who you all believe to be the worst, love their own. But if you want to live like children of God, you should love not only your own, but also your enemies. This is a central and consistent teaching you find throughout the New Testament. If you want to know where the idea of tolerating people who believe differently than you comes from, and why the Western world is saturated in this belief, you may be surprised to find out that the core idea didn't originate from the Enlightenment period or from the leftist liberals. It is because of Christ and his impact on Western cultures throughout the millennia. The idea of free speech and the freedom to worship as one feels convicted to is birthed right out of Christian thought. Now, this doesn't mean the principle has always been practiced, but the very ability to even conceive of the idea as an important virtue, and then for others in your own society to see that value as well, is all because of Christ. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be a thought in anyone's head, or even so much as a whisper in the wind. Now, it's true, as I have already briefly mentioned, Christians have often made mistakes when in power, just like other groups have as well, to silence any dissenting belief. For example, I remember in my own lifetime the reaction among some groups in the Christian community to the Harry Potter books when they came out. For instance, many Christian parents had a pretty strong reaction to this book, which was then followed by the practice of burning these books.
Let me say something about Harry Potter. Warlocks are enemies of God.
Oh, no, oh, no, no. Karen. Somebody get Karen off the stage.
And I don't care what kind of hero they are. They're an enemy of God. And had it been in the Old Testament, Harry Potter would have been put to death.
Seriously, what group has ever been a good guy in history that burned books of people they didn't like?
I think it was this guy's idea to burn the books. If you want someone to blame, it's this dude.
Reichsminister Dr. Goebbels spricht zur Jugend.
Now, as Christians have fallen out of power and influence once again in history, another group fills the void. And has taken the reins of power and is now doing the same things. Seeking out people who said or wrote something they didn't like and are trying to get them wiped out. As Christians, we need to speak out against the idea of not loving your enemies and wanting them erased and silenced. We need to show the world the way and the truth of Christ, which is, of course, to love those who aren't on your side and to treat them as people created in the image of God. In the marketplace of ideas, we need to take a stance of engaged tolerance of others, not excluding or approving ideas, but testing all ideas. All ideas should be allowed and heard, but with engaged tolerance, this also means that all ideas will be critiqued, questioned, and challenged. Berean style. A truly great idea will hold its own on its own merits. Ideas should not be artificially shielded from any criticism or hidden away to never be challenged, but all ideas need to be given a fair shot. Not canceled away because people feel challenged by an idea. Another thing, we as Christians also need to remember this moment, because one day the power will once again change hands and Christians may be in a position of power, and if they wanted, they could use that power once again to influence and also to snuff out people they disagree with. In that moment, we need to remember that Christ's truth reigns supreme in our conduct, whether in positions of power or not. We are to love our enemies as Christ did. We must lead the way and show the world a better method of dealing with people we disagree with. This is a virtue that has given us the relatively peaceful world the West has enjoyed and benefited from for the last few centuries. And if we want to keep that world, we need to strengthen our resolve and be the standard bearers of this great and powerful truth of Christ. The truth of love for even our enemies. Because if we won't live that truth, no one will. Well, that's all for this episode, but if you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe and check out other episodes as we address different issues in our world and bring you the truth of Christ in a post-truth culture. Grace and peace, brothers and sisters. Mike, you're canceled. You're canceled, man.